Steve, how you doing? Hope you're well, all that sort of stuff. Like, subscribe, etc. Finally got around to doing the Solar Fields track. I've taken it from session to arrangement, so I'm going to run through what I've done, what changes I've made. Hopefully this helps you out a bit. I've used a hell of a lot of reverb, I can tell you that for one. So let's get into it. Here we are in total. I have now got 34 tracks, which is an obscene amount of tracks, but different things playing at different times, and it all kind of felt like I needed to add it to the whole mix. So I've got 3 new tracks at the bottom. I've got bass tail, which is basically just the tail from the bass guitar. So if I play you a solo bit here, I'll just solo that. So I sampled that. I just need to move my camera actually because I've got it over the side of the screen. So if I solo the bass tail you hear, it's the tail of the bass guitar, and what I did was I put it through its own Valhalla, 31% there. You can see what I've got. And then I've EQ'd everything, put a little bit of volume gain on it with the utility. And I've also, if I take you into session view on the bass tail, session view is the best place in my opinion. You can drag these up, you can see all the faders in real time, and you can see easily what you've got turned on the sends. So on the sends, which I went through in the last video, I've got turned up a bit just for a bit of glue. The filtered lead comes from this analog patch. It was from one of the things that was playing. It was, I don't even know what it was actually. It might have been. So I just played around with it, sampled it, put it into a simpler, and narrowed down the bit that I wanted to actually do. So you can see that is the whole piece that I did. So that's the whole patch. I put a bandpass spinner on it, pitch hack, which is just doing a reverse thing with a slight dry wet. If I take the bandpass off, it's quite fuller, but I didn't want it to be full. Take the pitch hack off. That adds a little bit of reverse pitch shift. I've got a delay on it, and again EQing. And the last one, I actually did a string section because I felt like I needed something, so I did a string quartet based from a Reason patch. I turned Dirt and Grit off. It's just to add, funnily enough, a little bit of Dirt and Grit to it. And I've given it a little bit of width as well, so it spreads it in the mix. The width puts up the mid side and decreases the center channel. So it adds a little bit of something, and then what happens is it comes in again at the end and it fades out on this. So it comes in with it and it fades out, and it all creating part of the story. So the whole arrangement I've gone through pretty much using the guide of Solar Fields. So I took all of the bits that I did in session view, I dragged them into arrangement, and I just kind of randomly played around with them where I thought they would go. And it actually took me an awful long time because I didn't get the feel for it right, and I couldn't quite picture the whole thing. So I've dragged it around quite a bit. So we've got our opening section, nice and quiet, gets a little bit busier. We've got a few things that you can see start coming in from the later stages of it. Then we've got a section here. Now everything really spreads wide with this Reason rack one, which is a lovely pad. It sounds beautiful. It spreads really wide with it, and then we get into kick first comes in when we've got our first rhythm section. And then we've got a little bit of a change as the bass starts coming in. And then we effectively break down into the bass. And then we've got a little bit of a break section. And then that transitions into a main theme. Sort of variation on the main theme with that bass, and then we go back into a full-on main theme where the kick drums fill in fully. And then this fades out. Everything starts to kind of fold in on itself. So I've used the same sort of design principles that Solar Fields used on the Parallel Universe track, I think it was. everything sort of builds up to this theme, and then it starts to just crumble away and fade out, so that you've got less tracks in, and that's where the string quartet comes back in again. It fades right out. So what I've done with it, I basically chopped and changed quite a lot. You can see quite a lot of different colours on different different things there. So I wanted to just sort of suggest what was coming. So these chords here from the string quartet, they are a copy of the chords that come in here. So it just gives you a feel, it gives you an anticipation of what's coming up. I've got the flute patch there. Now, it's not an integral part of the piece, but it does come back in later on here. So it's kind of, you're getting a little bit of a feel of what's coming on, and again, it's all based on what Solar Fields does within his music. So I took a few little bits. You can see I've chopped and changed around things like the dirty sound. Again, like say with the deep soul bass, that's just a precursor of what's coming. We've got a slightly different section there, and then we've got that bigger section there. It drops out for that theme, and then it comes back in at the end. So I played around quite a bit with the rhythm. You'll notice I've got a lot more rhythm tracks. So in the early stages, I realised I wanted some more sort of distant things. So I call this distant clicks. So if I solo that, it's got its own Valhalla there. You see quite a long reverb on that, and it also, if I can get over to it, distant clicks. Oh, in fact, it hasn't got an extra one. I've only got that one Valhalla. I think I used the same patch, but I just increased the reverb time and increased the reverb on it, so it sounded further away. And then I've made some amendments here. I've got the double rhythm thing going on this one. So these are all in different timed loops, so they kind of play around with each other quite a lot throughout the whole piece. This one I kept to the same, and I created a fourth one just using a tone. So it's got that rhythm happening all the time. So everything's kind of out of sync with each other, so it's polyrhythmic, it's playing around using the same sort of ideas that Solar Fields uses for his rhythm tracks. On here, I quite liked part of the sound that was playing as well. So if I solo that. It's kind of like a whistly weird sound, so I thought I'll bring that out, and it sounds quite nice in the context of the piece. But you'll notice they've all got their own delay on as well. And I'm using the LFO on different parameters just to give it a little bit of movement. And every single thing, every single track in here has been EQ'd out. So you can see on the piano pad, because I didn't want to use a single compressor in the same way that Solar Fields and the guys I was looking at doesn't like to use a compressor. I was like, right, so I want to create everything, a little bit of space for everything. So the piano pad, I dipped it there because there's quite a few things that are happening in those mid-ranges that I wanted to let shine through. So if I turn this off, you'll notice there's quite a bit going on there. So it just allows a little bit more of the sound to come through. So if I unsolo it, you can hear it in the background. It allows other things in there a little bit of life when they're all around that same frequency range. It means you don't have to duck things all the time and use sidechain on the compressor. And this sound down here that I showed you before, the filtered lead, you'll notice it's playing for the entire piece because, again, I just wanted that thing going on. So you'll hear it here. And then again later on. So it's quite quiet. But you've got that constant thing running through the entire piece. And the solo. And I've used quite a few different things, so rather than do any automation on things, say I've got this 303 here, you can see the velocity is quite low, and if I go up to here, we've got a little bit higher velocity. If you look on these sections here, I've used the velocity to actually taper it down, so rather than automate anything, I just thought, no, I'm going to use velocity and just control it like that, so we don't have to think about any of the automations and playing around with things. I'm sure you could get a bit clever with automations, but it just didn't feel like it kind of fit with the piece. I was quite happy with what I had with it. So I think the best thing to do is actually just play it through, and you can kind of hear and see to a degree actually what's going on. So where I've got, say, like the solo parts here, I've got this. That's the sample of the solo, and then as we go on, I've got the solo plays as well. So they're playing at different rhythms, but they're kind of still playing at the same time, and they kind of play off each other. And then I added in as well on the Sine Dirty later on in the piece. This is where it really gets into that section again, just before the kick drum ramps up. And it felt like it worked quite nicely to have a theme going on. So I haven't really got a amazing main theme. The solo's kind of the main theme, but if I take this off, you'll see how it works like this. And then I doubled it up with the dirty saws and delayed this dirty saw a little bit, just moved it along the measure a little bit. One other thing I did with this 303 here, you'll see I've accentuated certain parts in the EQ because this sounded quite nice. So where we've got the stabs on this section here, I'll turn the EQ off. I wanted to accentuate certain parts of it because it cut through the mix a little bit more. So I've kind of done that. So as this is playing, I'm going to click through each of the sections. I'll scroll it up and down, and you can kind of see what's going on and then where I've EQ'd, and hopefully it gives you a kind of window into it. So I'll just play it and get stuck into it. Maybe see you on the next one. If I don't, I don't. If I do, I do. It might be a couple of weeks away because I've got a fair bit going on at the minute, but thank you very much. Catch you later.